My mom and I recently watched one of those 2020th shows, and they were talking about a woman who went out drinking one night, and was never seen again. She had gone back to one guy's apartment, but hotel footage showed her leave shortly after arriving, and the guy in the apartment swore he didn't do anything to her. But they kept interviewing this one guy, who was the last guy to see her alive. They stopped at a gas station, and he claims that she started talking to another guy, got in his car and left. He played the whole "if I had only known, I wouldn't have let her go" act, with tears and everything. Well, there's footage of him at his job a couple days later, and the footage is super generic. He has a cooler on a rolling cart, and he's putting it in a freezer. He worked for a food production company. When the police interviewed his boss, they asked to see all of her footage, and she obliged. When they got to that part of the footage, him putting the cooler in the freezer, she told police to stop. She said that those coolers were used to store granola bars, and there was zero reason for those bars to be put in the freezer. The girl's body was in there. He took it out back and burned basically everything in a barrel down the alley a couple days later, but it was before the police had seen the footage. And he had bleached his entire van before police could search it. The dating game. The concept appeared innocent enough. A woman chooses a bachelor out of the 3 available contestants and they go on a date. However, the game in 1978 turned dark when serial killer Rodney Alcala was nominated to be a contestant and actually won the game. The contestant refused to go out with him on the date because she thought he was actually creepy afterwards. She dodged a bullet. This surveillance video of Timothy Pitson, it just looks like he and his mother are checking into a hotel, but in reality it is shortly before his mother kills herself and leaves behind a note saying Timothy is safe but will never be found. He is still missing. The TV show The Willis Family that had 2 seasons on TLC. The dad was super controlling of his 12 kids and wife and just gave off creepy vibes. I was shocked though to find out that he had been raping his own daughters for years, with the oldest saying that molestation started when she was 3. All 12 children were homeschooled and did dance and wrestling, but only with each other. They were so isolated from other people. He was also strict about his daughters saving themselves for marriage even though he was raping them. There's a clip from the show of him discussing all the kids building houses on his property so his future grandchildren would be close by. It's like he was trying to set up his next victims for when his daughters grew up. The worst part is the mom knew for a while but didn't do anything about it. It was a family friend that ended up reaching out to authorities, which led to his arrest and sentence of 40 years. It's super creepy to see clips of the show knowing what was happening behind closed doors. The James Bulger video. I'm on mobile and I'm a bit lazy, but it's a seemingly innocent video of a 2-year-old boy, James, holding the hand of an older child. James was tortured and murdered by 2 10-year-old kids who led him away from his mother for a split second at a shopping center. The song Anne-Marie sings in All Dogs Go to Heaven about wanting a loving home. While recording, the voice actress, Judith Barcy, kept crying. Her home life was awful. Her father was abusive to both her and her mother and would often threaten to kill or hurt them. Judith died before the movie came out. She and her mother were killed by her father and then he killed himself. She was 10. Ian Huntley. Guy murdered 2 young girls and gave an interview to the news while they were missing. What about the video that was on Tosh.0 where there were 2 girls and the dad tied them in a playful way to the bed? But it was really like a pedo tutorial on how to do this to kids so the pedo could do what they wanted. Tosh said on the show it was creepy and the guy's whole YouTube channel was weird. A few months later the FBI or something investigated it and it turned out the guy was a pedo abusing the girls and exploiting them on his kid's YouTube channel. That video looked creepy innocent until you find out the real story. One day I saw a news report on a woman's body dropped in a lake. The police were still looking for the body. They interviewed a man who said that could have been someone's mother. A few hours later they find out the body was that man's mother. I'm from Czech Republic and on YouTube, there's a video of a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire contender Viktor Kalivoda. He's a pretty smart guy and performs better than well. However, later he's become one of the most famous mass murderers in the history of our country. That wham video always gives me goosebumps. Reddit thread, Redditors take a pic of them on a hike. In the background is the unconscious body of a person who was severely injured the night before. There was a picture of a 16-17 year-old girl floating around very briefly years back. It was just an innocent picture of some teen posing for a photo. Look deeper into it and it turns out the girl was from a rich family and had a drug problem. She got into an argument with her dad, stormed out and stole his car, did a bunch of coke, then crashed into a bridge going hella fast. She was killed instantly. As sad as that is, the fucked up part is why the photo was being passed around. Somehow the photos taken as the scene of the crash found their way online and horrifically cruel people decided to send out fake memorial emails to this girl's family. Opening the email seemed innocent enough. A heartfelt subject about how terrible this was, a photo of this girl before she died, but scroll any further and there were the pictures of her corpse with messages taunting her loved ones. I found one of these messages and her body was not in one piece. It was mangled. Seeing your daughter's corpse is one thing, seeing it in that state is something else, but to have people playing with it online for no other reason than to hurt you is unthinkable. The 2004 tsunami videos. People having fun on gorgeous day, enjoying the now very wide beach not knowing the wave of death coming towards them. This video of former officer Craig Pyre giving safety advice that was created in response to the murder of Cara Knott. Pyre had murdered Knott by luring her to an isolated area just off the freeway. Carmen Miranda's last performance. Carmen Miranda, the famous singer and dancer of the 1940s, performed on the Jimmy Durante Show on August 4, 1955. At the end of her performance she briefly dropped to her knee but popped back up afterwards. She later died of a massive heart attack that same night. Edit happens at 24:02. My fault for not putting it earlier. This interview about a murder, with Stephen McDaniel, in which he, her neighbor, ended up being the one who kidnapped and dismembered her. It's horrifying looking back and seeing his tics where they bring her up, and even when they eventually find her body and he goes loco. This video, of a Russian influencer. In her birthday party at a swimming pool she had the idea of pouring dry ice in the water for the visual effect. 3 people died intoxicated because of all the carbon dioxide news. I don't know about innocent, but if you cut out the ending, the video leading up to Bud Dwyer's suicide seems so normal. Just another guy on TV getting harassed by reporters over the latest controversy. If it had cut there, you could air it on the evening news and nobody would know someone died less than 20 seconds later. Just disturbing. Edit, corrected some words. These teens found a suitcase in Seattle by the sea while filming a TikTok. Only to discover later the suitcase contained 2 bodies. There was a celebrity in the UK called Jimmy Savile who presented many BBC programs in the 1970s, especially ones with a younger audience. He did a campaign for seatbelt awareness and was a patron for many charities for the vulnerable. He was probably the most loved celebrity for decades. After his death he was revealed as the country's worst child sex offender who used his fame and proximity to children to abuse them. Any picture or TV footage of him near kids was probably shot just before or after he'd assaulted someone. Actress Melissa Benoist was on Jimmy Fallon in 2016. She told a story about a time she fell and tore up half her face and one of her eyes. She made jokes about it, and no one really thought about it. Last year she revealed that one of her exes was very violent when they were together. She revealed that the story she told on Jimmy Fallon was a cover-up story. The real story is that her husband, at the time, had thrown an iPhone in her face. This video of a band, performing in a bar in Thailand. Minutes later, the entire place catches fire and more than 60 people are dead. Also, the band's name is Burn and the song they're singing is Linkin Park's In the End. Hi, Jack Neal, winky face. Tommy Cooper death on stage. People was thinking he was still acting when he collapsed on the ground dead, for a heart attack. Edit, grammar. Dr. Nasser's sports medicine videos. He's one of the docs for USA Gymnastics and has had a ton of videos on his website of him demonstrating various sports med techniques and treatments. It looks professional on the surface. The thing is some of his techniques are totally made up. Some techniques he demonstrated on video he would digitally penetrate, finger, young girls in the vagina and anus. He performed these techniques on hundreds of young girls under the guise of it being for their health and sometimes directly in front of their parents, sometimes while aroused. Watch Athlete A on Netflix if you want the story on this scumbag. Fetch. With Rough Ruffman is a fairly obscure PBS kids show I liked to watch as a kid. The episode Rough Pigs Out and Has a Whale of a Time features orca trainer Don Bronchia, who was unfortunately killed by an orca 5 months after the episode aired. Maybe not that innocent to begin with, but extra creepy knowing the truth. A video of an African grey parrot named Bud saying "Don't fucking shoot." He witnessed his owner, Martin Durham, being murdered by his wife. IIRC Bud also mimicked both sides of verbal fights, alternating between a male and female voice. I believe the parrot testified in court, the wife was convicted. Edit, Bud did not testify, sorry to get your hopes up. He was however a useful witness during the investigation. This isn't really terrifying, but it always gives me the creeps to hear it. It's a video of Alessandro Moresca, who was a castrato singer. This is him singing in 1902, I believe, and he was in his 40s. If you don't know what a castrato is, basically they used to be really popular to use in opera and other genres of music way back a few centuries ago, mostly to use in place of female singers. A castrato is a male singer who has been castrated before puberty. Basically, if a young boy had a high voice in choir or something along those lines, they would be castrated while young so that they wouldn't lose their abilities to reach the high pitches because their voices wouldn't drop due to puberty. Honestly, the recording completely creeps me out because it was such an awful thing in the history of opera, and it's so creepy that only a little under 100 years ago did the last official castrato die. Thousands of boys died while being castrated or after, and this recording is absolutely haunting. Chris Watts pleading for the return of his pregnant wife and daughters. He confessed to killing them all the following week. Fire at a nursing home in Sydney back in 2011. TV reporter interviews one of the nurses, Roger Dean, who tells of helping get residents out. Then the police announce he was the one who set the fire to start with to try to cover up his theft of $85 worth of prescription drugs. 11 people died in the fire. Original newscast. In 2016, YouTube Brittany Louise Taylor uploaded a video titled "I'm Engaged and Pregnant." She talks about a man she had met on Tinder, and that she is now pregnant. After the baby was born, it emerged that this man was never in love with her, but was just pretending. He had targeted her for human trafficking and had deliberately got her pregnant in order to sell her baby. With that information, it's really scary how he looks at her at the end of the video, and how he treats her in other clips on her YouTube channel. Fortunately, she escaped the situation and got a restraining order. The scariest thing about this is that he didn't go to prison, and went on to impregnate and marry another Instagrammer, who has since disappeared from social media. Be careful when you swipe right, kids. If you want to find out more about the story, Brittany has a book called A Sucky Love Story. It's badly written but fascinating. ETA, her son is also safe. They live with her mom in Arizona. Columbine Senior Yearbook Photo 1999, where the shooters who are doing gun signs at the camera just weeks before the shooting took place. Here is the photo, look in the far upper left of the image. Edit, spelling. Next door neighbor security footage of a disturbingly calm Chris Watt loading up his work truck in the morning with the bodies of his recently strangled pregnant wife and 2 young children, to dispose of them. Absolutely fucked up. IIRC WWE did a in memoriam for Chris Benoit very soon after he died, a little too soon, before it was announced Benoit killed his wife and kid and then himself. The movie Blow Up is basically this but a movie. Spoilers: it's about a guy who takes a picture of a woman at a park. And that woman demands that picture. She follows him around. She seduces him. Makes him think she loves him. Then takes the picture and leaves. He kept a copy. He blows it up so big it takes up an entire wall, and then he finally sees what she was doing in those bushes. He goes to the bushes afterwards. And finds the dead body she was hiding when he took her picture. Can't find video of it, but this happened in 2004. Guy named John Sharp lived in the suburb of Mornington in Victoria, Australia, with his wife Anna and 2-year-old daughter Gracie. One day Anna, who was 5 months pregnant with a boy, and Gracie suddenly vanished. John Sharp made a teary plea to his wife to come home, that she and Gracie were missed, and he loved them both so much, etc. A few days later, police charge a man with the murders of Anna and Gracie. That man was John Sharp. John Sharp shot his wife in the head with a bow and arrow, killing her. He then shot his daughter. The first shot didn't kill 2-year-old Gracie, so he pulled the arrow out of her head, and shot her again. He dismembered the bodies, bagged up the parts, and dumped them at the tip, basically landfill, if you will. He'd first buried the bodies in the backyard but dug them up after he became worried he'd be found out. He'd even gone so far as to send flowers to Anna's mother overseas, pretending she was still alive, when in actual fact she was buried in the backyard. He got 35 years, and from what I've heard, he's spent most of it in solitary, because literally every other prisoner has tried to kill him. A popular 18-year-old CSGO YouTuber uploaded a reveal of the supercar he had just bought. His Steam account containing around $100,000 of in-game items was banned 6 months later, causing him to have a serious mental breakdown. 2 months after his ban, he drove this car 100 miles per hour down a San Diego highway the wrong way in an attempt to commit suicide. He crashed head-on into a van, killing himself, a mother and her 12-year-old daughter. The last Twitch stream of Wreckful. He jokingly comments about if it's all a simulation and maybe you get out when you die. He asks if he should try his luck to chat. You can tell he is glancing at his balcony a few times. He jumped from it some time later. It gets even darker when you learn about his past. His older brother committed suicide as well. Edit. It seems he said it a month or so before doing it. Link to his comment, also an edit, a good YouTube doc on him. It's extremely well done and a good watch regardless if you knew who he was. Recent Britney Spears TikTok and all that videos she posted. I am not a fan myself tbh, but as a person who doesn't know much about her, it felt weird and somewhat awkward to watch it. Which I read the comment to see that there are people saying like how she's asking for help through all these videos. Curb Your Enthusiasm were filming in Dodger Stadium during a live match. If they hadn't been there, a man called Juan Catalan would have gone to death row for murder. The cameras caught footage of him sitting in his seat and he was exonerated. There's a Netflix documentary on it called Long Shot. The video of the Boston Marathon bomber going to a supermarket to casually buy milk after blowing up 2 homemade bombs at the race. Fuck him. How about the episode of The Cosby Show when he makes his secret barbecue sauce and everyone gets really groggy and tired and he tries fucking his wife? The 2007 movie Waitress. It's about a small-town waitress with a passion for baking who struggles with an abusive husband and an unwanted pregnancy while trying to find happiness and love. It's a sweet and really heartwarming film, and it has some big-name stars Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion, Andy Griffith, but most notably to this post, Adrienne Shelly. Adrienne Shelly was not only a co-star and the writer for Waitress, but this movie was also her cinematic debut as a director. When released in 2007 it was very well received for its heart and unique directorial style. However, Adrienne Shelly was murdered in 2006, 3 months before it debuted. Her death was first ruled as a suicide by hanging before further investigation showed she was murdered by a stranger who staged her suicide. Waitress was the only film she would get to direct. The Adrienne Shelly Foundation now exists to support women filmmakers, continuing Shelly's legacy. Honestly, typing this up is making me a bit teary. Waitress is one of my all-time favorite movies, and a great musical as well, and losing someone like Adrienne Shelly just shows how cruel the world can be sometimes. Edit. Turns out Waitress wasn't her directorial debut, though it may have been her cinematic debut vs direct-to-video. This video, from June of 2012, showing a 20-year-old man playing Dance Dance Revolution at an AMC theater in Connecticut. He is being unknowingly recorded from behind by some people who spotted him and they are both mocking him and admiring his skills at the game. 6 months after this video was taken, the young man in the video, Adam Lanza, would shoot his mother 4 times in the head while she slept. He would then drive his car to the nearby Sandy Hook Elementary School, where he would murder 6 adults and 20 children who were between the ages of 6 and 7. During the shooting, he yelled abuse and obscenities at his victims. One student reported that he heard one of his classmates cry out, "Help me. I don't want to be here," and Lanza replied, "Well, you're here." Upon hearing the sirens of responding police units, Lanza pulled out a 10mm pistol and shot himself. No motive for the shooting was ever found. Back in the 90s, there was a segment on the Jenny Jones show where a guy, Scott Ameger, confessed that he had a crush on a male friend, Jonathan Schmitz. Schmitz was so embarrassed by the appearance that he shot and killed a Major 3 days after the taping. Mother Love by Queen. Freddie got most of the song recorded, but Brian has the last verse. At the studio, Freddie said he was tired and would finish the rest some other time. He never did, resting at home during his final days. Brian came back later after Freddie's death and finished the last bit. The Mick Philpott press conference. In around 2012 there was a big story here in England about Mick and married Philpott. Their house had burned down and they had lost 6 of their children. Philpott had 17 children overall from different relationships. This press conference happened shortly after and shows an emotional pair thanking people for their efforts trying to save the children. Turns out, Philpott was a well-known slimeball who lived off benefits, had numerous kids with different women, was in an open marriage that only he seemed happy about and had been on TV before bragging about his life. When one of his mistresses decided she'd had enough and left, she took her kids with her. Philpott didn't like that, so concocted a plan to set fire to his own house, rescue his kids in a feat of heroism and frame the woman who left him so she'd lose custody of the kids. The fire got out of control way quicker than he expected and he ended up killing his own children. He did that press conference knowing he was responsible. He's now serving life in prison. Edit, there's a great picture out there somewhere taken during the same press conference. It shows one of the police officers assigned to the case with a look of disgust, almost like he's thinking, we know you did it, we just can't prove it yet. That kid who did anime reviews and ended up making a video about his big future plans. He ended up killing his entire family and tried shooting up his old high school before he got caught. Also, Elliot Rodgers' old videos are just eerie. Tears in Heaven, Eric Clapton. It's a song written to his 4.5-year-old son who died after falling 53 stories out an apartment window that was accidentally left open.